Have you ever considered that deep within the heart of Jerusalem, there stands a mountain? This is a sacred place, revered by millions. Ancient prophecies foretell that it will one day divide into two sections just before the conclusion of this era. This mountain truly exists, and it is known as the Mount of Olives. Thousands have walked its paths without suspecting the secrets it holds. Now it has begun to fracture, yet the most astonishing discovery still awaits revelation. Across the centuries, this hallowed ground has served as a silent witness to history. It observed armies on the march, prophets delivering messages, and countless generations offering prayers with eyes turned toward the distant horizon. Today, however, a transformation unfolds. Fresh cracks emerge in the landscape. Stones fixed in position for hundreds of years have now moved. Local residents and visitors alike have taken notice. The earth itself emits groans. Pavement surfaces reveal fissures absent only months earlier. Certain specialists pursue purely geological accounts, while others, in quiet reflection, examine age-old biblical writings and feel a deep tremor. This is no mere ordinary fracture. It represents a symbol, a warning, and a profound summons rising from the very bowels of the planet. Might this mark the onset of events the ancients envisioned more than 2,000 years past? Envision treading across a city whose foundations conceal both a seismic fault line and a prophecy spanning millennia. Such is Jerusalem. At present, these two forces appear to stir simultaneously. The eternal city stands venerated by millions, yet it rests atop a geological break linking the Jordan Valley to the spiritual core of the world. In recent months, an unforeseen development has emerged. The ground has started shifting. This goes beyond simple hearsay. Geologists from Israel have verified that the fissures along the Mount of Olives are not relics of the past. They are fresh, profound, and actively progressing. The revered terrain, so cherished by multitudes, is displacing underfoot almost as though yielding to an unseen power or fulfilling an ancient vow. What unfolds when the paths of science and faith converge upon identical ground? A passage once confined to biblical scripture now reads with the clarity of an exact geographical outline. Jerusalem, the eternal city, occupies the very center of this enigma. At a secluded spot on the Mount of Olives, a person stumbles against a rock displaced only lately. Gazing downward reveals a fissure, a sharp incision through the stone. What transpires in this place? Initially, many attributed it to ordinary effects of natural erosion. Subsequent analysis, however, uncovered something far more alarming. These breaks are recent. They differ entirely from the damage inflicted by the major earthquake in the year 1927. Instead, they expand and advance, almost as if an internal force seeks to cleave the mountain apart. At this juncture, the full significance of the prophecy becomes evident. The prophet Zechariah recorded that the Mount of Olives would split into two halves upon the coming of the Messiah, extending from east to west. Does it amount to mere coincidence that those precise orientations now yield and weaken? Or do we stand witness to the opening chapter of a vastly more significant occurrence? As the earth splits apart likewise, the doubts of many begin to dissolve. What once appeared as legend gradually assumes the form of a geological assessment ready for documentation. Every additional fissure may carry the faint echo of a destiny drawing near. Before proceeding, share this account with a person you cherish deeply. Our foremost purpose upon this earth involves spreading the divine message. Are you aware that numerous individuals remain uninformed simply due to insufficient meaningful material? Forward it to a group on WhatsApp or release it upon Facebook. Confidence assures that no regret shall follow. Should you find favor in presentations of this nature, leave a note below expressing the desire for additional ones. In this manner, it becomes clear whether enjoyment is genuine, and fresh comparable material will surely follow. Did you realize that more than 150,000 burial sites line the incline of the Mount of Olives, each oriented toward one specific location, the Temple Mount? Tradition within Judaism holds that at the arrival of the Messiah, the resurrection shall commence in that very spot. These graves, creating a pale covering across the mountainside, have maintained silence through the millennia. Lately, however, that quietude has been broken by a disquieting rumble, the noise of stones in motion. Certain markers have shifted while others show breaks. Could this stem solely from the slow erosion of time, or does a deeper cause exist? For a good number of rabbis, the scene serves as an alert and a remembrance that the boundary separating the material realm from the everlasting grows indistinct. With tombs in movement and the mountain fracturing, might this not herald the prelude to the long-promised occasion? Specialists in geology note identical occurrences, yet apply another perspective. Nevertheless, even those most inclined toward doubt concede an element of unease, an aspect resisting straightforward clarification, and possibly a thread binding this ancient quietude to a foretold reawakening. What actions would you take if the soil beneath your steps started conveying a caution, not through language, but via crack shifts and vibrations detectable only by the observant? Such events unfold at this moment within Jerusalem. Sacred texts describe various occasions when the ground quaked in the presence of the divine. During the bestowal of the tablets to Moses at the crucifixion of Jesus, and when the temple curtain tore asunder. Each instance featured an earthquake, a convulsion, and a clear indication. Presently, the Mount of Olives gives the impression of readying itself for yet another such event. Researchers capture these motions using precise devices. The faithful. Yet through prayer, both perspectives converge upon one essential truth. The mountain lives and moves. It shifts not with violent force, but rather as one might gently adjust to welcome something or someone of great importance. If indeed the earth speaks, then the hour has arrived to listen closely. For this may transcend simple tectonic plates. We may well stand as witnesses to the prelude of one of the most profound events in the entire span of human history. What thoughts would arise if told that a prophecy inscribed more than 2,500 years ago now comes to life in this very moment, not within dreams or vague symbols, but in solid stone, in fine dust, and in the tangible movements of the ground visible to your own eyes? Zechariah chapter 14 verse 4 leaves absolutely no room for doubt. On that day, his feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem to the east. And the Mount of Olives will divide by the middle from east to west, creating a vast valley. The prophecy offers no ambiguity. It specifies the exact location, the precise direction, and the event that will trigger it, the arrival of the Messiah. Now that very same mountain has begun to separate. The cracks advance exactly in the direction foretold. What countless generations viewed as purely symbolic now find support in geological reports, aerial photographs, and the direct testimonies of those who walk upon the sacred mount. Does this represent mere coincidence? Or do we witness ancient scripture beginning to manifest itself, not upon old parchment, but within the living earth itself? Imagine discovering an ancient map that indicates with remarkable precision a future event, not through metaphors, but with clear coordinates. Such is the nature of Zechariah 14:4. A verse many have read, yet few have grasped in its full literal sense. The prophet speaks not of obscure dreams or blurred visions. He refers directly to the Mount of Olives, to a physical division of the terrain, to a valley opened by supernatural power. All of it connected to the most anticipated moment for millions, the coming of the promised King, the Messiah. Scholars of biblical geography have examined this prophecy across centuries. Yet now, for the first time, real-world data from the ground begins to align perfectly with the ancient text. The fissures extend from east to west precisely as Zechariah described. Who could have predicted such detail without intimate knowledge of deep geology? This stands as no ordinary verse. It appears as a signal that waited thousands of years to activate. And now that the process has begun, what comes next? What occurs when the lenses of science and faith observe identical phenomena, and both find themselves without ready answers? Such unfolds at this moment in Jerusalem. Geologists, rabbis, archaeologists, and believers all gaze upon the Mount of Olives with the same profound unease. Something stirs. Scientists record millimeter-scale displacements across the surface, attributing them to the tectonic fault. Yet even they acknowledge the pattern defies normal expectations. One expert remarked that the mountain moves in ways never before observed. Meanwhile, senior rabbis have begun cautioning their communities that the signs of the end times intensify. Some cite Zechariah directly. Others reference Ezekiel 44 verse 2, which foretells that the eastern gate shall remain sealed until the prince enters through it. Tension rises because this no longer concerns belief alone. Concrete data evidence, photographs, and fresh cracks appear like verses slowly opening beneath the feet of the world. Among the debris in the tombs, a fracture widens through the rock. Yet this marks far more than a geological fissure. It forms a line that severs centuries of history, dividing what once was from what approaches. It separates doubt from fulfillment. This crack runs near ancient burial sites, historic walls and paths once trodden by prophets and pilgrims. According to Zechariah, that same fissure will transform into a great valley, a passage, a wound that will reshape both the topography of Jerusalem and the destiny of humanity. How many other prophecies provide such precise detail regarding a future event? Not many exist. This one avoids vague signs or ethereal metaphors. It speaks of earth splitting open, of mountains dividing, of a movement that will unleash the supernatural. Should you wish to receive exclusive revelations and in-depth studies concerning the prophecies and mysteries found within the Bible, know that directly below this presentation appears a button labeled Become a Member. By activating it, you may join a select group receiving materials and explanations not shared publicly. These are prepared with great care for those who seek deeper understanding of the divine word. Now, with each new report of ground displacement and every emerging crack, this division seems to unfold exactly as it was written, exactly where anticipated, and at the foretold time. It stands no coincidence that Jerusalem occupies the center of so many religious, political, and historical narratives. This remains the city where heaven and earth appear to touch. Yet beneath its spiritual glory lies a heart that trembles in the most literal sense. Jesus spoke of Jerusalem as the city of the great King. He wept over it, walked its streets, and according to Acts chapter 1 verse 11, ascended from there and shall return there as well. The Mount of Olives served as his point of departure, and according to Zechariah, it will also mark his point of return. Now this sacred city rests upon ground that groans, that opens, and that changes, as though preparing itself, as though aware that something or someone draws near. Can a city sense the approach of its appointed time? The prophecy declares it. Science confirms the movements. And history now begins writing itself once more. What manner of fear would compel an empire to seal a gate with stone for over 500 years? In Jerusalem, facing the Mount of Olives, stands the Golden Gate. This sole direct entrance to the Temple Mount has remained completely sealed since the 10th century. It was the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent who ordered its closure. Why? According to certain interpretations, to prevent the arrival of the Jewish Messiah, as though a wall of stone could halt a prophecy spanning millennia. He even constructed a Muslim cemetery before it, believing this would keep the prince at bay. Yet Ezekiel 44 verse 2 makes it clear. This gate will stay closed because the Lord, the God of Israel, entered by it. Therefore it shall remain sealed until the prince comes. The scripture anticipated both the closing and the eventual reopening. Now, as the Mount of Olives begins to fracture precisely in that direction, many wonder whether this very crack will become the path that reopens the gate. Will stone yield, or will time itself give way? Imagine being laid to rest in a place with the hope of rising first when the Messiah arrives. Such represents the profound meaning of the cemetery on the Mount of the Cemetery, on the Mount of Olives. A promise of life right in the midst of death. More than 150,000 tombs cover its slopes like a vast sea of white stone. From kings and rabbis to ordinary believers, all face the Temple Mount. According to Jewish tradition, that site will mark the epicenter of the final resurrection, the first place where death itself will be conquered. Yet now the stones of those tombs have begun to shift. The cracks do not merely cross the terrain, they pass directly between the markers. Some split apart while others stand displaced, as though the earth stirs those who have waited across the centuries. Is this a geological coincidence, or a whisper from the eternal realm beginning to awaken those who slumber in faith? Did you know that the very spot where Jesus ascended to heaven is the precise location where, according to prophecy, he shall return? That place is the Mount of Olives. And now that mountain has begun to divide. In Acts chapter 1 verse 11, the angels declared to the disciples, "This same Jesus who has been taken from you into heaven will come back in the same manner as you have seen him depart." Where did that ascension occur? Upon the Mount of Olives. Where does Zechariah state that he will place his feet once more? Exactly there. The mount bore witness to his tears in Gethsemane, to his teachings on the end of the world, and to his final farewell before ascending. It represents far more than a geographical site. It stands as a prophetic axis where past and future collide. And now, as the earth trembles and opens beneath that very point, the question becomes unavoidable. Are we closer to his return than we once believed? Why would a city spanning millennia keep a gate sealed for half a millennium? Was it superstition? Was it military strategy? Or was it fear of what it represents? The Golden Gate remains sealed like an echo of the prophecy from Ezekiel. For centuries, it was regarded as nothing more than a forgotten remnant of the past. Yet, its exact alignment with the Mount of Olives and the cracks now advancing toward it have sparked renewed attention. Ezekiel wrote that this gate would not open until the Prince, the Messiah, entered through it. And now, with seismic movements at the base of the mount, some begin to wonder whether the terrain itself prepares the way. Stone may have sealed the entrance, but the prophecy was never sealed. Did you know that one of the most active geological faults in the world runs directly beneath Jerusalem? The Jordan Valley line extends like a seismic scar straight under the Mount of Olives. For centuries it lay dormant, but now the mountain displays signs of movement. Not only tremors, but fissures and displacements. And all of it aligns with what Zechariah described more than 2,000 years ago. Geologists have attempted to contain the alarm, yet even they have had to acknowledge that the mount moves in ways never before observed. The fault lives, the mountain responds, and the prophecy aligns with science. When the spiritual and the geological converge at the same point, the outcome is no accident. It forms a signal, a warning inscribed in stone and activated in our time. What occurs when even the scientists begin to declare, "This we have not seen before"? That is precisely what certain Israeli geologists confess while studying the Mount of Olives. The fractures now forming do not follow typical seismic patterns. They appear in unexpected zones, in directions foretold, and with a synchronicity that escapes purely geological explanation. One expert stated, "The mountain moves, but not as it should." Meanwhile, scholars of the Bible compare these reports with Zechariah chapter 14 verse 4, where it is predicted that the mount will divide from east to west. Surprisingly, many of the cracks follow that very direction. When science reaches its limit, the spiritual begins to sound more logical. Perhaps the earth does not respond to plates alone, but to a greater purpose. Many of the young scientists working today in Jerusalem grew up viewing science as a barrier against superstition. Yet now, as they observe the anomalies of the Mount of Olives, they start to ask questions they never imagined posing. Why do these cracks appear in a place with such a precise prophecy? Why right now? Some attempt to remain neutral. Others in private admit they feel unsettled. The mountain is not merely changing, it changes in a manner that echoes the biblical narrative. The collected data reveal a series of movements that coincide with the account in Zechariah. They are not simply measurements. They serve as evidence that appears to support what was once considered only faith. And so, a new generation of geologists learns that the earth does not merely speak. Sometimes, it quotes the scriptures. In the hallways of universities and in the tunnels beneath Jerusalem, archaeologists have labored for decades uncovering sacred history. But on the Mount of Olives, even they begin to sense something distinct. Many have watched stones move and the ground open without clear answers. Some in private gatherings acknowledge these changes do not appear natural. Others have begun to study the prophetic texts with fresh eyes, with renewed respect. Zechariah, Ezekiel, Matthew. Each passage appears to resonate with greater strength as the mountain transforms. It is not simply an ancient terrain. It is a living place filled with memory and destiny. The tension between science, faith, and fear grows palpable. For if the prophecy begins to fulfill, then the entire modern paradigm stands poised to be shaken, literally. This is no metaphor. This is no exaggeration. The Mount of Olives moves, and it is not one religion that declares it. The instruments of measurement declare it. The seismic sensors, the monitoring equipment declare it. Yet what disturbs most deeply is not the movement itself, but the direction it takes. The plates shift exactly as Zechariah predicted from east to west, cleaving the mountain, forming a potential valley, preparing the stage for something that extends far beyond science. Satellite images reveal the advance of the fractures. The reports are filed with discretion. Nevertheless, the reality stands there in the open air before thousands of tourists each day. When the mountain moves, the world should pay heed. For perhaps it is not the earth responding to pressure alone, but to a promise. In the 1970s, one company attempted to erect a luxurious hotel upon the Mount of Olives. It seemed a brilliant concept. Sacred views, millennial history, tourist appeal. Yet the project was halted abruptly. Why? Geological surveys uncovered something alarming. The subsurface proved unstable, fractured, impossible to build upon safely. The cracks already existed there, dormant, waiting. No one stated it publicly, but internal reports suggested the mountain was not a site for construction, but for observation, as though the terrain itself had been reserved for something far greater, something inscribed, something sacred. Today, those cracks have expanded, and what once prevented a hotel may now prepare the path for an event that will not be touristic. It will be eternal. In private gatherings, some rabbis have begun to voice what for centuries was only whispered among the wise. We are near. Near to fulfillment, near to change, near to the return. One of them, according to accounts, stated, "The cracks are not confined to the stone. They lie within the very line of time itself, as though history yields and opens. And in that opening, something divine stands ready to emerge." Zechariah chapter 14 no longer sounds like poetic text. It reads as a map, a manual of warning. And those who have studied this mount for years now gaze upon the ground with new eyes, not as archaeologists or academics, but as witnesses. Because when the ancients begin to speak through their heirs, the world should pause and listen. When Moses received the law, the mount trembled. When Jesus died upon the cross, the earth divided and the tombs opened. Matthew chapter 27 verse 51 states, "And behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two, The earth quaked, the rocks split. Earthquakes in the Bible are not merely natural events. They serve as signals of the sacred breaking into the physical realm. And if this holds true, then the current movements of the Mount of Olives are no mere accidents. What if the next great earthquake is not simply a catastrophe, but a signal? And if what will divide the mount is not the geological fault, but the arrival of the one who was promised? The earth speaks the language of the prophets, and many for the first time in centuries pay attention. For centuries, the prophecy remained a disconnected piece, something distant, perhaps symbolic. But now, the pieces begin to fit. Real cracks, precise geology, the sealed gate, the moving mount, the forming valley. It is not yet a complete picture. Yet what once appeared as fantasy now emerges as a narrative in progress. A story that is no longer read. It is lived. And the most unsettling aspect is that almost no one can halt it, as though an invisible force had pressed play upon a prophetic clock that had remained paused for centuries. And each day, each crack, each tremor marks a new tick-tock. We witness the puzzle of the end times assembling itself right before our eyes. Zechariah described it. A great valley will open a passage through the Mount of Olives from east to west. It will prove so vast that it will divide the mount in two. Not as a symbolic image, but as a physical event observable to all. And now, every crack, every displacement, every soil study seems to prepare that moment. Satellites record it. Drones document it. The prophets announced it. Only the decisive instant remains. When that valley opens, the sealed gate will no longer pose an obstacle. The holy city will stand exposed and ready. And the world as we know it will never be the same. It does not concern whether it will occur. It concerns when. And it may be that this when has already begun. Somewhere beyond time, there exists a day that will alter everything. When the King returns, when his feet touch the mountain, when the valley opens, when the gate breaks and history reaches its highest point. Zechariah stated it. Ezekiel confirmed it. Acts repeated it. The King will come. And when he comes, there will be no room for doubt or for excuses, only for awe or for preparation. The Mount of Olives is not merely a place. It is a clock. And it marks the hour with every crack, with every movement, with every tremor. And the great question is not whether we will witness it. It is whether we will stand ready to receive him.